Okay, let's get into it. I'm doing a video here. I've been long awaited for this one. I've been telling everybody about this video, and I'm gonna do a video on a collection of pike spearing decoys that I made out of wood over the years. So to start off, I'm doing the first one that I've ever done. This is my brown trout. It's the first wooden decoy that I ever designed or ever made. It's a pretty large decoy. This is if I was to use this as heavy as it is, this would be a good decoy for deep water spearing for pike. I have some spears that are pretty heavy, and I can spear in as deep a water as, say, 20 foot. Even for like sturgeon spearing up in Black Lake up in northern Michigan. But this is a brown trout, one that I made, and it's all painted. And underneath here, this is a block of wood, and I hollowed out a slot and put lead in there, and then I filled it with Bondo and sanded everything real good. Got these are metal fins. These are fins that are from old saw blades. When I worked in a prototype shop, we had a wood shop and we had the circular saw blades. So that's basically what these fins are made out of. They're just a metal that I cut out with a cutoff wheel and ground them and shaped them and made them into that. But you could use sheet metal or anything. But at the time, I was just using scrap wood from our wood shop in the prototype part of our business, and using any scrap metal. Sometimes the alcohol or lacquer thinner 5 gallon buckets or 5 gallon cans that they come in. I would cut the flat bottoms off of those 5 gallon containers and use that sheet metal for making the fins on them. So this is a brown trout. Um, like I said, it's one of the first ones I ever did. And we're going to put him over here. And shoot, I got to try and reach over and get these. So hold on, let me move this camera just a minute so I can reach over. I didn't want to put them all out at the same time and have you see them all like that. So another one that I made is this perch, yellow lake perch. And oh, I forgot to tell you, a lot of these, when I made them, I signed them. So this one, they all have the signature and then year. And this one looks like it was made in 2005, and it's one of one. I've never made another perch like this. So this is a perch, and did the airbrushing on it myself. And same thing. This is actually the fins on this one are made out of those 5 gallon lacquer thinner containers. You know, like a round bucket kind of thing with a screw off cap. So I'd cut those off and make the fins out of that. So that's my yellow lake perch. Which is a very good decoy. And let me see if I can reach over. And that I should probably be standing on the other side of the camera for this, but I'll be over here. So those are them. And then the other one that I made in the series, this is back when I was making decoys, spearing decoys, and I tried to make them look like the natural fish. And this is like the natural series. So this is what I call my walleye. He's got them glassy looking eyes there, speckled, and got the green. And I got so detailed that I even put the white on the bottom of the these two fins, the tail and the bottom fin. That's not dorsal, that's a ventral fin, I think. But yeah, so I even did the actual uh, correct coloration with the white patches on there, and I used a little bit brighter greens and colors to it, so it would show up better in the water. Because depending on the water clarity, sometimes your decoys have to be either more natural colored like this, or you can go with some real bright fluorescent type of colors. But yeah, so I generally, when you make the decoys, you kind of use some colors that are similar to what the fish color might be if you want to go natural like this, but you also want to make them kind of bright colors so that they can show up in the water there. So give me a second here. I'm going to reach over and grab a few more of these. This is probably one of my favorite, one of my masterpiece spearing decoys right here. Let me grab this one, and then I got another one here. I'm gonna try to put these so you can't see them until I bring them out and show you. So anyhow, so the next one in the series, this is my northern pike spearing decoy, and I forgot to tell you that on all these, wherever the fins are, there'll be holes in there, and you tie the line on, or use a swivel, and you put the swivel on in different spots. So if you wanted it to be the decoy to be more balanced in the water, you might use one of the more center placed holes in there. Um, Sometimes you might want the decoy to be held so it's more on a tilted like this. So when it glides to the water, it's going from a downward position and sweeping up as it swims. Sometimes you want the decoy to be tilted down, so you can get a little bit different tilt in the water column, so it's not sitting perfectly horizontal in the water between the surface of the ice and the bottom of the lake. So you can tilt, you got some variability to tilt these. But yeah, this is a northern pike that I made, and it's probably one of my favorite ones decoys that I've ever made. And then I made this, it looks like in 2006, I think. And yeah, I mean, this thing's so beautiful. It's an art piece. I would never put this in the water and try to spear with it. If I was going to do that, I'd probably try to make something a little simpler in design than this, and not as detailed. The shape of the fins and everything, I try to match it exactly like a real northern pike would be. So that's probably my favorite one. That's one I'll probably never give away or sell or whatever, because it's one of my favorites. But yeah, that's a beauty right there, that northern pike. So let me move these around a little bit. I'm gonna run out of room real fast on these because they are pretty big good sized decoys. And then the next one I made was a lake trout. And this is part of like kind of my deeper water series, spearing things. But I use this, I got really into this seafoam green airbrush paint, and then using the pearl paint to give it the little spotting pattern on the lake trout like they do. And then a little bit of orange or the little yellowish coloration in the tail and the fins on it. But yeah, this one was from 2006 also. But that's my lake trout I did. So we got that one. Now I got to make the big reach again. I apologize, but I got to make a big reach over to grab the other ones because, like I said, I'm trying to put them out here, but with show you them individually. So let me reach over and grab these other fellas, and you can see like more of the progression of the decoy making that I did. So going with the lake trout theme, for my deep water series of decoys, I got the lake trout, and then another fish that you would see in a deep cold trout lake in northern Michigan. That because a lot of these lakes that have trout in them in Michigan, they also have pike in them too for spearing, and they allow spearing for the pike because they want to control them in the population. But this is my whitefish. And I made this one. I actually took a Dremel and carved out the relief so it looks like the big scales that are on a whitefish. And it doesn't have a whole lot of color to it, but whitefish don't usually have much color. They're kind of silvery, kind of a bluish gray silvery color. So I think that one, I did a pretty good job matching that one up. And these are really heavy. I mean, if I was spearing in like 6 foot of water, 8 foot of water, like I usually would for spearing pike, these would be a little too heavy. They would still swim, but these are made for fishing down in deeper water. They're nice and heavy. They sink good and they glide. And the key thing too with these decoys is that you have the tail on there, and the fins, the vertical fins that are kind of work like rudders, and then these side fins that all the decoys have, that gives you that lift and that glide motion when it's working in the water. And as you can see, I got several different adjustment holes in the top fin, so you can put this so it can sit perfectly straight like that. You can hang it so it's tilted upwards a little bit or tilted downwards a little bit. And then when you lift up on it, you're going to get a different gliding motion. When you lift up like this, the whole thing's going to turn like that. So yeah, so that's my whitefish. So I got that one there. Let's see, we're running out of room here. See why I got to do a part 2 of these decoys, um, because I got so many of them here. Just this amount right here of the ones I made is just, you know, all of that. Plus I got more of them. So then another design I came up with, and this is very similar. It's a sucker decoy, and I kind of left it kind of that retro 1930s 1940s decoy, pike spear and decoy design. Because that's where a lot of the Darkhouse pike spearing, Darkhouse spearing tradition came from. Is it came out of a lot of times from the Great Depression. You know, a lot of people were poor, had to find something to feed their families, and so they would go out and sit in a shanty, a fish house on the ice, and cut a big hole, and they would spear. And you know, if you got one or two nice pike in an evening or an outing out there, that would be several meals for your family. So this is kind of a tribute to those old style decoys that were kind of simple like this. And this is kind of similar to a sucker decoy design that a famous decoy carver, Lawrence Bethel, designed. He used to carve and sell decoys back in the, I think, 40s and 50s, maybe even earlier than that. I have to look that up. But he was making so many decoys in Minnesota and Wisconsin, where he lived, at that region where he would sell his decoys, that he had his wife actually helping him paint the decoys. And she made a comment. She goes, if I'm gonna make decoys for you or help you paint these decoys, I'm putting nostrils on them, putting little nostril holes, painting on there, and I'm gonna put eyebrows on them. So if you ever find a Lawrence Bethel decoy and it has black eyebrows painted over the eyes themselves and the little nostril holes painted in it, that was a decoy that was painted by Lawrence's wife. um, and he's kind of a famous decoy carver. It's, you know, his decoys go for hundreds of dollars, maybe even upwards of $1,000 for some of his old early works. They, you know, like I said, to go back at probably at least the 40s and 50s. He might have been making them even earlier than that, into the 30s, late 30s. But yeah, that's my tribute to a Depression era Lawrence Bethel sucker decoy. He made a lot of sucker decoys because that's a very common bait and attractant fish that would lure pike in. I mean, they love suckers, they love perch. That pike eat anything, but yeah. So this is a little collection. This is part 1 of some of my decoys that I've carved. I'll probably, the next one, I'll probably show you some commercial made decoys, the ones I actually use from time to time. And then some of the ones that they're like my decoys that are more beat up kind of decoys those are the ones I would go out and dunk in the water. So anyways, let me tilt this camera up a little bit here, see if I can move it around so you can get kind of a good view of all of them. But yeah, these it was fun. I'd like to get back into doing carving decoys, but I don't have a wood shop here at my house where I can actually, you know, uh, mill these out, because I usually cut them out in a template, a shape, and then I got to round the edges off. But before I did that, I usually had to start out with a block of wood, and I'd put it on a Bridgeport, and I would hollow out a channel in here in the belly, and that's where I would fill with lead. And what I used to do is just use bird shot, you know, get a bag of bird shot, and I'd pour the pellets in there and mix it with epoxy in that hole, and it would make a nice solid bond in there, and that lead wasn't in there. Some decoy carvers used to just make the hole in the bottom of the decoy, and they would just pour hot lead in there. But you run the risk of burning the wood on the inside of the decoy. And sometimes if you burn that wood burns enough of it away, your lead will fall out unless you can really glue it in there good. So I just used the bird shot pellets, and then I just mixed it with some epoxy and just gooped it in there. So anyways, yeah, so that's just an example of some of my decoys when I was carving them and actually, doing a lot of spear fishing, in a dark house. And the way the dark house works is you cut your 2 foot by 4 foot hole in the ice, and then it's a portable shanty. It pops up kind of like those pop-up hunting blinds, and you screw it and anchor it down to the ice. And you put your heater in there, and yeah, and you don't leave the windows open. You close all the zippers on the shanty. You close the doors, the zippers that close the doors. You close that off. You close the windows off. You make it the shanty as dark inside as possible, and in that way the light that's reflected through the ice comes up through the hole. And when you're looking down there, it's like watching TV. It's like a TV screen you're looking down at. And yeah, so if you had the windows open, the covers on the taken down from the windows, and like the shanty door open, the light would come in. You would probably have very difficult time seeing the bottom or seeing anything. So that's the whole idea of the dark house spearing, ice fishing spearing concept. And that is a tradition that goes back to the Native Americans. They're the ones that taught the settlers how to how to um, how to how to fish on the ice with a spear, and have a little makeshift tent or a house on top of the ice overlooking your hole, and then you make it all dark, where all you see is the light coming back up through the hole. And so the Indians actually made spear and decoys too. I don't know if there's any of them that have made it to existence now, but we know that they used deer antlers and pieces of bone, and they would carve it into some sort of a shape and have a suspension hole or some sort of a thing that they could lower it down and just jig it and move that bait around to attract a fish to come in. And that's what all these things do. The same concept. It's just a modern version of what the Indians had done. But yeah, very cool sport. And like I said, I probably won't be able to get any footage of going out actually spearing in a shanty this year, because our season, I think spearing season closed a couple days ago for pike. You can still fish for pike with tip ups and hook and line, rod and reel, but you can't spear them anymore. The season's closed for them. So anyhow, so I'll be probably putting out a part 2 of this video. It'll show some more stuff. I might even show some of my spears and the ice saw. The ice saw is very wicked looking. It looks like something out of a space age Klingon weapon spear looking thing. They're kind of wicked looking. So I'll show those off to you. The saw that I use to cut a hole in the ice, and it cuts through it like butter. I mean, it can cut a 2 foot by 4 foot hole pretty quick. We usually would drill with an auger. We drill 4 holes in each of the corners of the hole we want, and then we'd put the saw blade in the hole and just start hand sawing it until we got the whole piece of ice released, or cut. And then it's just an option of whether you got to get the block of ice out of the hole, or if you just push it up underneath the ice. I always like to get the block out, because when you got that extra thickness of ice in one spot under your shanty or next to your shanty, it can affect the way the fish travel when they come into the hole. So I would usually take the whole block out, and then at the end of the day we would just pry bars, and we'd work the block of ice back over to where the hole was, and we'd just drop it back in, set it there, and then we'd always get some old dead tree branches and sticks that we'd stick in the hole, just to mark it. So if anybody's out on a snowmobile or they're walking out there just ice fishing, they wouldn't step on that old spearing hole. I mean, once after a day or two of it, it would freeze up solid enough that you could walk on it or run a snowmobile on it. But just during that 24 to 48 hour period until it froze up good, you'd always want to, mark the hole so nobody falls through it. Because I mean, it literally, you could fall through that hole right to the bottom of the lake, because it's 2 foot by 4 foot usually. So anyways, like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you on the next one. So anyways, see you again later on. Keep it going. All right, I'll talk at you later.